Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, members of the public. My name is Lindiwe Zulu. I'm acting DG at Social Development. Minister Lindiwe Zulu, the Minister of Social Development, good afternoon. I'd like to also acknowledge the Chief Executive Officer of SASA, Mr. Tsimemela Kambule. I'd like to also acknowledge the Deputy Minister as well as the MECs who are joining us virtually, responsible for social development. I'd also like to acknowledge the CEO of GovChat, Mr. Eldred Jordan, who's joined us this afternoon as well. Minister Zulu has called this media briefing to brief the nation and members of the media around the developments with regards to the support measures being provided by the Department of Social Development and its portfolio, and at current adjusted level 3. So Minister will speak around those particular measures, and the President, you would recall, had spoken around these measures a few days ago, and Minister Zulu will speak to the context of the directions and how some of these measures will be implemented. I'd like to call to the platform right now Ms. Lindiwe Zulu, the Minister of Social Development.
Thank you very much, Acting Director General of the Department of Social Development, Mr. Lindiwe Zulu. I also would like to recognize the officials of the department who are here, and I smile every time I see Brenda somewhere there, because you see, when I think about the basic income grant, I see Brenda walking in and Brenton walking in. And thank you, officials, for being here. The Deputy Minister, Ms. Henrietta Bohopane Zulu, and all the MECs who are on the platform right now, the CEO of SASA, Tsimemela, and CEO of NDA, Thamo Mzobe, probably connected virtually. We are back again, bantu basemakhaya siphinde sabuya futhi. Sizokhulumisana nani ngendaba engazi kakhulu ukuthi abaningi abasekhaya, abaningi abalahlekelwe imisebenzi, abaningi abangenanto bayajabula kakhulu ukuzwa ukuthi namhlanje sesiphinde sabuya futhi, noma sibuya ngeyodwa nje igrant le i-social relief of distress i-350. Ngicela nokubonga futhi all our partners who work with us kule service delivery esikhuluma ngayo. Ngizwile ADG ekhuluma ngo-Eldred Jordan we-GovChat, nabanye ke esipartnera nabo, siyababonga nabo ukuthi babe khona namhlanje. I think I'd like to cut the chase and get to the real issue here, and I want to start with what I think is very important for everyone. I will then follow with the rest of the explanation, because I think what is much more important here for the majority of our people who are looking forward to this grant is that the application channels will be opened on Friday, the 6th of August 2021 from 9, and we expect the first payments to be made in the last week of August. Ngicela nokuthi ngichaze kwakona lokho ke, so that abantu ba understand ukuthi masithi siqala ama application asisho ukuthi sizobhadala ngalelo langa, siphindela back to le process esiyasiyenza kudala. Ngakho ke emakhaya ngicela nazi ukuthi siyavula ukuthi nenze ama application wenu on the 6th of August, and September by all means sizowenza konke okusemandleni wethu ukuthi by the end of August last week sibe sikwazi ukunibhadala. Okunye okulandelayo I think okumqoka and very important is the eligibility criteria for COVID-19 SRD grant, and it will be as follows. A social relief of distress grant of 350 per month as indicated in the directions, as payable for the period indicated therein to a person who is a South African citizen permanent resident or refugee registered on Home Affairs database, and persons who are holders of the special permits under the Special Angolan Dispensation, the Lesotho Exemption Permit Dispensation, the Zimbabwe Exemption Permit Dispensation, and asylum seekers whose Section 22 permits or visas are valid or were valid on the 15th of March 2020. Currently residing within the borders of the Republic of South Africa, above the age of 18 and below the age of 60, unemployed, not receiving any social grant in respect of himself or herself, not receiving an employment insurance benefit and does not qualify to receive an employment insurance benefit, not receiving a stipend from the National Student Financial Aid Scheme and other financial aid, not receiving any other government COVID-19 response support, and not resident in a government-funded or subsidized institution. Caregivers are also who are not receiving any grant on their own behalf will also be eligible to apply for the special COVID-19 social relief of distress grant. We will remember that this was an addition that the President made when he made the announcement which he made, and everyone was looking forward to that. We will recall, of course, that the President announced the reintroduction of the special COVID-19 social relief of grant. I was not only very happy, but also very encouraged by the care and commitment that our President and his government had shown in cushioning the poorest and distress in our country, especially given the continued hardship that our people are still experiencing as a result of the ongoing pandemic and the devastating effects it is continuing to have on our country and household. I also do want to thank the Minister of Finance, Minister Tito Mboweni, and his team. I know that me and him really we log horns from time to time. We'll continue to log horns because there's got to be an appreciation of the challenges that are faced by our people. And I would like to also indicate that according to studies and research that were done and findings for the period between March and June 20, COVID-19 relief measures were estimated to have reduced the number of households with income below the food poverty line of 20.6% to 18.8%, and the reduction of inequality from 0.644 to 0.613. In addition, research confirmed that the majority recipients use the money to buy food. And we know that they use the money to buy food, the majority of them. And buying the food also means that the money that government is giving goes back into the economy because they go and purchase the most basic needs. And most of their basic needs are food and production that is done in South Africa itself. It is also important to highlight that all recipients who have not received some of their payments during the first iteration of the grant between May 2020 to April 2021 will certainly receive their payments in this new iteration. This will not affect the monies that is owed to them from the first iteration. And I think the CEO of SASSA will also indicate, probably she'll even indicate from a point of view of the numbers of the people we can talk about who did not receive their money. I'm sure she can be able to deal with that. During the first iteration of the grant, almost 10 million applications were received, with just over 6 million approved for payment to the tune of 24 billion. An additional 15 billion was paid as top-ups for a period of 6 months to all grant types. We are also pleased that 100% of these applications were online or digital application, which actually quickened the entire process. We have taken note that the majority of the previous applications were paid to males between the ages of 18 to 35. And I think this data is a data that's very important, not only to the Department of Social Development and its portfolio, but this is data that is very important to the economic sector. This is a data that is important to Minister Thulas Nxesi of Employment. It's important for everybody in government because it gives us a sense exactly who are the people in the main who were losing their jobs, who are the people who almost ended up with nothing. This was due to the fact that we did not change the eligibility criteria for the 350 grant after the expiry of the caregivers grant. This resulted in a gender imbalance where in the caregiver grant, which was accessed primarily by women, expired in October 2020, whereas the 350 grant, which was accessed by mainly males, was accessed in the dispensation and asylum seekers. The caregivers who did not really get this money, we had to make an analysis of the data from looking at who actually got the money and then look at how do we improve it, because in the main, the caregivers are usually women. In the main, it's young women or elderly women in most instances. We would like to, just a second for me. Yeah. I must acknowledge that the role of the Auditor General, which was played by the Auditor General, alerting us to some of the challenges we needed to be mindful in the implementation of this grant, and we have taken lessons from this process which we will be utilizing in the new iteration. This is very important for us as far as the Auditor General is concerned, because we will recall that on issues of the Auditor General, we always dealt with issues after when the Auditor General gives us his report. But this time around, the Auditor General, as indicated by the President, not only in looking at ourselves who are giving grants, but also in general, we'll all remember that in issues of PPEs and all, the Auditor General is able to give us facts so that we are then able to make sure that if there are problems within, we deal with them and not after. We would like to reiterate that only those who meet the criteria and have no financial support from any source should apply for this grant. It is also important to emphasize that the previous SRD grant expired on the 30th of April 2021, and this means that all those who had previously applied must reapply. I have been getting questions and answers. Minister, we've been getting our grant. Do we really have to apply again? I want to repeat it again. Everybody has to reapply. In order to enable us to assess their eligibility, as we did every month during the previous period, and all applications will be treated as new applications every month. However, each applicant needs to apply once. Thereafter, the application will be considered. Ngiyafuna ukuthi ngiphinde la ukuthi abantu ababeyithola i-social grant yabo le i-350 yabo kuyafuneka ukuthi futhi baphinde ba-apply, ngoba abaningi babo kungenzeka ukuthi sebaphindela emisebenzini. Ngakho ke le mali esiyikhiphayo siyikhiphela abantu abangasebenzi. Bekusikwenza ke lokhu even sisaqala, abantu bangabe bese bethi yini manje sesishintshile. Asishintshanga lutho. Even na before make sure ukuthi siyabuyela kwi-account yakho, siyabuyela kwi-data, siphinde si-check ukuthi akukho na la uthola khona imali. Ngendlela esisebenza ngayo, sisebenzela ukuthi wonke umuntu azi ukuthi le mali yiyalabo abalahlekelwe imisebenzi, yilabo abangasebenzi. Abasebenzayo siyabacela ukuthi banga-apply. There will be no retrospective payment for the months the grant was not in existence from May to July 2021. umbuzo omunye ke bebelokhu bewubuza bathi ngoba ke upresident seka announceile sesizovele siqhubeke from kudala na ukuze sithole imali from the time yaphela ngakhona I 350 asibuyeli emuva siqala la ngoAugust masiqala ngoAugust siqalela phansi sinikeza lo 350. The new application will only be effective from August 2021. The applications shall be considered from the month of application and paid up to the 31st March 2022. Mona re chelete itlotswa from August 2021 ifele ka di 31st March 2022. Provided the qualifying criteria continues to be met. This requirement will be confirmed through the monthly validation of every application. It is important to note that there will be no automatic qualification. All applications must certify the criteria and will be subjected to the entire validation process. And ngiyazi ke ukuthi during lesikhathi lesi sokuthi si check ukuthi abantu abasebenzi abantu abekho kwamanye ama grant akhishwa uhulumende kunokwenzeka ukuthi ezinye izinto zidelay kodwa ke ngoba sesifundile from the previous one ngicabanga ukuthi asizuba nawo lawo ma problem ebesinawo before. Ngicela ke futhi ningivumele to explain why it is important for people to reapply. Le eyokuthi abantu ba reapply important ngoba khumbulani from the very beginning masaqala ngo2020 siye sathi nathi si Department ye Social Development no CEO weSASSA nabo bonke kuyafuneka ukuthi sibe accountable kule mali sibe accountable na ku treasury ukuthi I treasury mayisinikeze le mali sisho sithi sinikeze abantu aba right leyo mali. Firstly, that people's circumstances may have changed over time. Secondly, in order to confirm clients' personal details and assess their income and financial status. Thirdly, applicants need to accept the declaration and consent which has been strengthened to comply with the Protection of Personal Information Act, POPIA, which came into effect on the 21st of July 2021, and in order to access or to have applications reconsidered for social relief of distress, an applicant must grant consent for SASSA to verify his or her identity, residence, income, or social security benefits with any other institutions deemed necessary by SASSA. We have implemented some system improvements to enable us to better serve the applicants and speed up the verification and payment turnaround time. This is very important. Our new process will now request the applicants to provide their banking details upfront so that we can process payment as soon as they meet the criteria. Lapha ke sithi ke kuqala besingaceli ibanking account sesiyacela ukuthi abantu bafake ibanking account okuzowenza ukuthi sikwazi ukubhadala imali much faster than besiyenza before. This will help address the challenges we faced in the past where some applicants took long to respond to our request for banking details, which led to delays in processing their payments. Noting that COVID-19 is still very much upon us, we will continue with measures to limit face-to-face interactions, to manage social distancing, and use the frontline application system, which has proven to be successful during the initial implementation of this grant. All applications will therefore be again done electronically as we did before, digitally, and any of the following frontline application channels may be used. Firstly, through the website, which is srd.sassa.gov.za, through our WhatsApp line, which is 082 046 8553. Additional application channels will be added shortly. An announcement will be made in due course. And we're saying will be made shortly because we want to really give people correct information so that when they try and apply, they don't come back again and say they can't get through. Please note that an application should be submitted through only one of the above channels. siyanicela ningathi man applya nisebenzise website phinde nisebenzise WhatsApp phinde nisebenzise okunye ngoba niyasiconfuse ni confuse le system esizama ukuthi kube yiyo encedayo ra khupela ge gore liska user all these three eri fangtsone liska user website li use WhatsApp li use any other only to find gore this information ya crisscrossa no ayisa khona gore iri talk to each other. Please note, as I said, it is not necessary to submit multiple applications. Confirmation will be received as soon as the application has been successfully submitted. For all other queries, applicants may contact our call center, which is 0800 601011 or email grantenquiries@sasa.gov.za. We encourage all applicants to conclude their applications when they start making applications to avoid technical challenges. Here, we have a problem all the time. Most of us don't want to fill up forms, especially when the forms are very long. And then we apply, we send, and then we find that half the information is not there. Ayizusebenzela leyo ngoba again iconfuser isystem yethu. Isicelo sethu ukuthi yiba nepatience. Mangabe u-applya through the website ube ne-patience. Mangabe u-applya nge-WhatsApp mabe kubuza imibuzo. Ngicela ukuthi leyo mibuzo uyiphendule kahle ngoba ma uyiphendula kahle wenzela ukuthi application yakho ihambe faster. With regards to payments of special COVID grant, SRD grant, SASSA shall pay the special COVID grant into a bank account of the beneficiary. With applicants who are unbanked or do not have bank accounts, SASSA will pay through SAPO, Postbank, or bank mobile transfer, that is the cash send. Ngiyazi ukuthi abaningi bazobuza ke lo mbuzo ukuthi hey nali iposi futhi nisiphindisela eposini siyakhulumisana neposi siyazama ngako konke okukhona kusemandleni wethu ukuthi izinto zilunge emaposini kodwa ngifuna ukusho ke ukuthi nalapho emaposini esikhathini esiningi asinabo abantu abaningi abasebenza ngaphakathi eposini because of COVID-19 we are operating at less the number of people that we normally have. It is important for applicants to note that the bank account or the cellular phone number provided for payment must be registered in the name of the approved application for the grant to ensure that payment goes to the correct recipient. We also appeal to all applicants to provide information on a bank account through which they can be paid so that we can reduce the long queues at the post office branches and improve convenience to our clients and reduce the risk of spread of COVID-19. It is also important for every applicant to provide the correct mobile number through which he/she can be contacted, as all communication with applicants will be through SMS notification. SASSA and the South African Post Office have been hard at work adding additional channels through which approved applications can access their funds to reduce the queues at the post office. This will include access to the funds through participating merchants and ATMs. Further information will be provided in the course of the coming days in this regard. Clients who previously cancelled the grant who would like to reactivate the grant due to a change in their circumstances are welcome to reapply. We are very conscious of the fact that bakhona abantu abanonembeza in fact ababuya bathi bona sebayasebenza sebewutholile umsebenzi kodwa ke mangabe kuyenzeka ukuthi babuyela emsebenzini baphindwe bayekiswa futhi emsebenzini sifuna ukubazisa ukuthi banga apply kodwa bahlale bazi ukuthi sizochecka futhi the same way esasicheckile kudala. Any applicant whose grant is not approved has the right to request that the decision not to award the grant be considered through appeals process. Baningi abayaziyo ukuthi yayikhona i-appeals process. Le appeals process yiyo le eyenze ukuthi noma sesiyekile ukubhadala le i-SRD yokuqala esasiyenzile saqhubeka ngoba bathe mabenza ama-appeal wabo awina kwatholakala ukuthi ke mabayithole imali yabo. Namanje sizosebenzisa yona the same process ukuthi mangabe awuvunyelanga udeclineiwe cela ubuye usebenzise i-appeals process. The decline will only be reconsidered upon a request from the client. An application has to be lodged on the website within 30 days of the outcome being available. It is therefore really important that applicants check their status all the time, which is updated on the website as soon as a decision has been made. An appeal must be lodged for every month that the grant is declined. I want to once again reiterate that this grant is for people who are under distress. We have in the past year established that there were public servants, business people, and children from financially comfortable families who applied for the grant. I really want to plead with members of the public and of course those who are working in government and all. If you do not need this money, please do not qualify because there are other people who are in a worse situation than yourself. We will continue to monitor any fraudulent activity, and SASSA will implement measures to recover every cent from those who benefited wrongly and will refer this matter to the law enforcement agencies for further action and possible arrests. With respect to the previous special COVID-19 grant beneficiaries paid during the period of 01 on May 2020 to 30 April 2021, outstanding payments are in the region of 45,414 transactions from applicants whose applications were approved but not paid because they could not be traced or they did not contact SASSA to update their personal detail. A total of 571,724 grants which have been approved remain uncollected from the post office, and I urge all applicants who have not received or claimed their grants to urgently contact SASSA, as they will only have until the 31st of August 2021 to make inquiries in respect of the previous grant from May 20 to April 2021. I also wish to urge these who have not withdrawn their payments to do so before the 31st of August 2021, because ke labo abangayilandanga imali yabo sesizoyithatha leyo mali siyiphindisele kwa treasury. Umthetho usho njalo ukuthi senze njalo. If awilandanga imali yakho until the 31st of August 2021 isikulahlekele ke leyo mali ngoba bakhona abanye abantu abayifunayo leyo mali. Mona ke kopa go tlhalosa gore ba ne ba applyile ene ba sa ilata tšhelete ya bone babe ba ithotse information ya hore ba tshwanetse hore ba ilate tšhelete ya bona. If ba sa ilata tšhelete by the 31st of August 2021 ba ka se kgone ho ithola tšhelete eo anymore. Any applicant whose application was approved but not paid because the applicant could not be traced or the applicant did not contact SASSA to update his or her personal details shall forfeit the money to the state after the 31st of August 2021. And I'm sure ukuthi uMinister Mboweni uyayifuna yonke le mali engathathwanga ngoba kukhona la ifuneka khona endaweni eziningi. Yesterday was the start of August pay run with payments to older persons, and payments went well across the country. We thank our stakeholders, particularly the banks and the retail sector, for their support in supporting us here. I am aware that there were some challenges somewhere in KZN. I did get calls from people, and I passed over the calls to the CEO, and the CEO did follow those up. I'm hoping that those challenges that were raised with me yesterday were sorted out. So the National Department, together with the provinces, are working hard with SASSA and the affected provinces to repair and reinstate some of the affected services so that we can rebuild and recover what was lost. In addition, we have been working closely with other government departments and civil society organizations, private sector, as well as Solidarity Fund to provide food for the most affected households. At this point, I really actually do want to thank the Solidarity Fund for reaching out to us and wanting to work with us. We've worked very well with us because the Department of Social Development, together with SASSA, we've got very good infrastructure for distribution of food. We've got good infrastructure even in terms of our homes where we keep some of the most vulnerable, and therefore we thank Solidarity Fund. We will continue to work with them. Essentially, our intervention as DSD portfolio in these two provinces was about restoring and providing services to our people in affected areas, providing food relief through our social relief of distress mechanism and within available means, both at provincial departments and at SASSA, whether through cash, food parcel, and food vouchers. This is what the government has done immediately after realizing the challenges that we were facing. We stepped up. We made sure that we use our existing systems to make sure that we reach out to those that were affected. We are very much aware that some were not reached, but we're still working. We'll make sure that we reach as many as we possibly can. I also want to indicate that as a department, we are responsible for providing psychosocial support to affected families as well as support to affected children. And in this regard, we have also elevated our real-time monitoring tool to include the effects of children during the unrest, linked to our rapid impact assessment, which we have employed, and working with relevant departments and structures, including the interfaith community, NGOs, community leaders, and the NDA. We are working hard towards social mobilization, rebuilding and creating sustainable livelihoods through our efforts to address issues of social cohesion and social behavioral change. It's important for us ukuthi sibonge osomabhizinisi amakhulu, sibonge ama-NGOs, sibonge bonke aba closer to the community who have taken their time to say, we are going through this tough time, but we shall rise as a nation, and we can only do that if we work together. Just with regards to other directions affecting the social development sector under Alert Level 3, visitations at older persons' residential facilities are now permitted with strict adherence to COVID-19 measures, and sitting and eating at community nutrition development centers is now allowed also under strict adherence to COVID-19 measures. We know very well the importance of our community nutrition development centers. These are places where children, for instance, before going to school, they pass through there and they have their first meal. Even after school, they come back here and they have a meal before going back home. Lastly, I wish to encourage all those who are eligible, including those who benefited before and are still in need to apply as from the 6th August 2021 onwards. The rapid assessment study that we conducted found that around 88% of recipients of the special COVID-19 SRD grant pooled the grant with their household incomes to take care of the needs of everyone in the household. I wish to encourage households to continue to do this so that we can extend the reach to our grant to reduce poverty and even support other initiatives such as job searches, livelihoods, and small business strategies. I also do want at this point in time to actually thank those young people who decided that 350 was something that they could start something with. 350 rands was something that they could pull first month and second month, and I'm sure baye babopha izisu ukuthi bangajaheli ukuyothenga izinto abangazinidi ukuze bakwazi ukuqala amabhizinisi. Sizothola isikhathi sokuthi sibavakashele labo abaqala amabhizinisi. Sizothola isikhathi sokuthi sisebenzisane futhi no Minister we Small Business Development ne Department ye Small Business Development, because ayikho into edlula ukuthi umuntu akwazi ukuzimela. Mina nje ngimela ngiyazi ukuthi sikhuluma ngo350, but ngiyazi ukuthi the majority of South Africans do want to wake up in the morning and go to a job. The majority of South Africans do want to wake up in the morning and be able to do something that improves their livelihoods. So any story out there that makes us feel like we are just taking the money and we are spending the money on people who do not use it properly is falsehoods. The fact of the matter is that our people are struggling. The fact of the matter is that there are no jobs. It's very difficult for people to look for jobs. The fact of the matter is that those who are unable to help themselves, it is our responsibility, which is enshrined in the Constitution, to help those so that they can be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Zulu, for providing guidance with regards to the special COVID-19 350 social relief of distress grant, particularly in terms of the criteria and advising clients or rather recipients, applicants, in terms of the process that will unfold in this regard. Siyabonga kakhulu, Minister. But also thank you for highlighting what the social development portfolio has done to assist families distressed in KZN and in Gauteng following the challenges that have taken place in the past few weeks. Thank you very much. At this point in time, we will take questions and any points of clarity. We'll start in-house. We have some journalists who have joined us here. And then we will go to our WhatsApp line and other online platforms where we may be able to take some questions. Can we start inside? Yes, ma'am, I think. Okay, please kindly introduce yourself and then ask your question, and then we will respond accordingly.
Thank you very much. My name is Zianda Ngobo from Newsroom Africa. I was just wondering if we couldn't just get specifics of, the worst affected areas in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng when it comes to SASSA and the post office, and which areas are needing to be rebuilt and how those affected will be redirected in terms of being able to actually get their grants, considering, of course, the circumstances that transport and distances might also be a factor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zianda. Are there any other questions in-house?
Thank you, Chair. Currently, there's no question.
Thank you, Ignatius. Let's go online. No questions online? Okay, great stuff. Let me recommend, Minister, that the CEO of SASSA come through and respond to the areas that have been affected in Gauteng and KZN. And then, Minister, maybe we would ask you to then come back to deal with a number of other aspects related to the KZN and Gauteng areas, because you were with the Portfolio Committee on their oversight last week, and to measure the impact, to get a sense of the impact of the devastation that was caused in that regard. CEO, SASSA.
Siyabingelela laba basemakhaya. Good afternoon. The one exciting thing that I've seen in the past few days since the destruction that we saw in KZN in Gauteng is what we can do as business and as government when we work together. We've been working together with the banks through BASA, together with all the retailers, and we've been constantly engaging to find solutions in terms of ensuring that those people, Zianda, that you were speaking about, that they get their grant. The Minister was earlier on indicating that we did have a challenge. We had a challenge only in 2 areas in KZN, Mhlwatini, whereby at 2 particular branches there were people that did not get paid. Those are areas where the post office, in areas where there was complete destruction, actually went out of their way to to create infrastructure in halls so that people could get paid. Unfortunately, in one particular hall that they had created, after 30% of the people had been paid, they had a challenge with the battery, had to go and recharge and came back. In one other branch, again, because it means that cash and transit vans need to go to more extensive areas than they did before, because infrastructure has been destroyed. They got to the area late, and unfortunately, a scuffle ensued in that particular area. So what one would plead with our people is for us to plead and for patience, because both the banks and the retailers are doing the best they can to ensure that all the beneficiaries that require to be paid actually do get paid. We have mobile ATMs that have been galvanized to make sure that people can get paid. So I really do thank the partnership that we have with all the other partners. The other additional thing that the banks have done is, knowing that some people will not have access to the banks of their choice. For example, of the 11.3 million beneficiaries that we pay, 70% of those beneficiaries get paid through the post office, but they use other infrastructure, which is the retailers and the ATMs. And in some instances, they would go to an ATM, which means that they are going to incur charges. This therefore means that because of the reprieve that the banks have come up with, where clients are not going to be charged, it therefore means that clients can still get all their money except only for the basic money that needs to be paid. So I'm really grateful to the support that we've received from the partnerships that we have, and will continue to monitor. Because for the next 3 to 4 months, it's going to be challenging to actually rebuild in all those areas that have been destroyed. What's exciting is that in many of the branches, we had about 3 branches that were affected in our spaces. In our space, as SASSA, particularly Post Office, has got more. But all those branches are beginning to come up to stream. For example, the branch in Alexandra should be opening next week, and in the other areas we didn't have a major impact in Gauteng, but where we had an impact in KZN, those branches, sadly, that were destroyed, were beginning to build again from scratch to make sure that we can continue to provide a service to our people and make sure that a delivery actually happens. Thank you.
CEO, can I please ask you to stay there? There's a question that has been asked by ENCA from Lindiwe Zulu around how we're going to ensure that there is no depletion of money at post offices anymore, as well as how we're going to ensure that there are no long queues at post offices when recipients collect their monies.
The Minister indicated earlier on that we've been hard at work to find alternative solutions for our clients so that we can ensure that we don't have the long queues that we used to have, that we still have, because we do have about 116,000 people that have not collected their money. The Post Office, together with Postbank, which is their banking partner, have looked at alternative channels where the clients can actually go and receive their money. So they've been working on a solution, which means because you've been KYC'd, if, for example, you already have a bank account with Postbank, it therefore means that your KYC status exists. So when you reapply, it will automatically be locked, which therefore means that you can then choose to either go and get paid at the post office, or you can go and get paid at a retailer that the post office has been engaging, whereby you can be able to buy with your 350 using a PIN that will be sent through to you, whereby you'll use both your ID and also the PIN that you will get on your cell phone to make sure that the money that you have, which is yours as defined through your identity, which is through your ID, can then be linked to the cell phone that you actually have and applied with. So this is an exciting solution that a post office in partnership with Postbank have come up with, and other retailers will come on board. They have one or two that have already signed up, but by the time we start paying, which we are looking at the last week of the month, we believe that they would have actually engaged with most of the retailers to make sure that they can assist. There's also a bank or two that they are engaging that is going to provide that support. So the idea is to spread the feet and make sure that not everybody actually goes to the post office, so that we can manage the process of queues and manage the COVID infections that are likely to come as a result of queues. DG?
Thank you, CEO. Thank you very much, CEO of SASSA. There was another question that was asked by Lindiwe Zulu from ENCA, asking whether there are any considerations for a permanent grant. Some organizations have been calling for a consideration of a permanent grant, and whether there are any discussions in this regard for those without income. What are the considerations in this regard? I want to check if there's another question online. Ignatius?
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions.
You.
I'll start with the first one from Lindiwe Zulu from Rachels. It's asking, what's the value of the 571,724 uncollected? And if no one comes to collect, will that amount be added onto the 26.7 billion? And then I have another question from Lindiwe Zulu from UNPACK Africa. She says, in the previous cycle, we saw more than 25,000 people who were not entitled to get the COVID-19 relief grant receiving it. This included 241 government employees. How many of these are behind bars for this? And I have another question from Marvin Adams, who's a freelance. And he asked, what sort of measures are taken for stateless people in regards to social relief? And I have a last question from John De Lange from the report. He asked, what were the costs of processing applications for the 2020 for the 2020 SRD grants? Will the cost for this grant be any less than the 2020 cost? This is an extremely urgent grant. How will you prevent the delay during the 2021 grant? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That was the last round of questions. I'll ask the CEO of SASSA to come back on one of those questions before we ask you to come back, Minister, if that's okay. CEO SASSA, a number of questions. I think the Minister had answered one of the questions around what's going to happen to the money that is not collected. It's going to go back into the treasury coffers. That was the one. And then CEO around what's going to happen or what has happened to those who were not eligible to apply. And then the other question was around the stateless people. CEO?
And the cost of the processing, I don't know if you have the cost of processing the grant.
Thank you very much again. What's important to note, and it's of great concern for us because we understood that the people that applied for the grant were actually people that were needy. It's important to note that when we started the process at earlier days, we did not necessarily have some of the databases which would have to do with the fact that other people may have initially applied and we did not pick them up, but because they understood that there's implications for them to actually get prosecuted for applying for a grant that they don't deserve, they decided not to go and collect the grant. we have 195,000 clients. So in terms of the number of people, there are 116,000, even though the number of grants in total come up to 571,724, which are the ones that are waiting to be collected at SAPO. So as the minister indicated, any money that has not been collected, we're going to have to ensure that we utilize it as the state to be able to close the gap in some other areas. There are a number of other people that we're grateful for in terms of being able to clean our processes and systems in the past 2 months that we ended up being able to pay. That is the referred cases. Some of the referred cases are people that as we make an assessment, we find that those people have been involved in one or the other fraud, which therefore means that we can't continue to pay them. We then normally we've sent all of them SMSs to say, indicate to us why you are appearing as a fraudulent a client or beneficiary. So many of them have come back to us, and for those that have come back to say, I could have been in jail before, but I've now been released. This is the reason why I'm appearing as a fraudulent person. So for those that have come back and clarified, we have since paid them their money. There are those people that were initially declined because they had appeared in other databases, yet in actual fact they were not working. So for those people, we've processed at the initial stages. We had about 40,000 of those, and most of them have been paid, which we're grateful for, because it therefore means that the system has become clearer and cleaner in terms of those people that were outstanding for us to pay. There's clients that also may have applied and the bank account may have gotten closed. Let's say, for example, if you don't have money, unlike what happens with Postbank, whereby the bank account doesn't get closed, with the banks in many instances, when there's no transactions that are taking place in that account for over 3 months, the account get closed. So for those accounts, it therefore means that the money has been returned back to us, and we'll have to find a manual way of paying those clients back. It therefore means that we now need to engage the post office again, reopen accounts for them and ask them to get paid, because they had applied, they have been approved, we paid, but the money was returned. It's going to be a manual process, which therefore means that it's going to take time for us to clear those. The other question that has been asked is, what are we going to do with the people that did not apply, that applied yet they did not deserve to get those grants? There's two key issues that we are currently doing. One is for us to work with the fraud team that is investigating all issues that are related to COVID fraud. We've been working with them to make sure that those clients, actually the law enforcement agencies, can deal with them. But over and above that, the issue of collection is what will come later, after we have ensured that we have identified them, we've engaged their employers if they are still employed. What's interesting is that many of the people that worked for government are actually students that may have been working there on either as graduates, which we want to plead to people even now. If you are working as a graduate, either in the public sector or the private sector, it means you do get some money. Would plead with you not to apply for funds that you don't have. There are other things that we're looking at to put in place to ensure that we close the gaps even further. So we're going to be checking even further, particularly for those that we know are actually getting some kind of income. For example, there are caregivers that we believe are getting some income because they may be working in some job. We'll continue to make assessments so that we can check them through the bank accounts that they may have in different spaces, to make sure that if there's income that is coming through there, it's a system that we're working together with the banks to make sure that we can close that gap too. So we're pleading to those who are, for example, working as domestic workers, as nail technicians, and as people that do spa work, to please not apply for this grant, because it doesn't mean that you have no income. Yes, the income that you may have may not be a lot, but we plead with you, because you have some kind of income, not to apply for this particular grant. So all those people that have been found to have applied for the grant that don't qualify, the law is going to have to take its course, but over and above that, we're going to have to ask them to pay the money back. So that it's still in process, and because we're not a law enforcement agency, we can't go and arrest them, but the law will take care of that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, CEO. Just to also indicate, there was a question around what's happening to the government officials who have applied, or who may take the chance to apply. As the CEO indicated, the law will take its course in that regard, and the previous iteration, the relevant departments were informed formally around this, and the necessary measures, whether it's disciplinary measures and other related measures, will obviously take place. There was a question by Mervyn around stateless people. Look, we need to have some sort of identification when people are applying, to ensure that we get the grant to the right person. So it becomes important that those who don't have any documentation should go to Home Affairs and ensure that they have the documentation. This is why we are able to also assist refugees and asylum seekers and permanent residents. So we are able to do that. So if there are those who would require assistance with regards to the grant, it's important to have the identification so that we are able to pay it to the right persons. Thank you very much. That was the last round of questions. Minister, you would come and respond to the basic income grant question, as well as some of the interventions we did in KZN and in Gauteng. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question with regard to the recent upheavals that we had. You see, as a Department of Social Development, we are responsible for the well-being of South Africans, but we don't do that on our own. We entirely depend also on the service delivery of other departments, and therefore, in response to the recent upheavals that we had that ended with violence, that ended with deaths, that ended with looting, that ended with destruction of property. As social development, working together with other departments in government, I think what's important is for us as South Africans overall to see that we have found ourselves in a difficult situation, and hardly any one of us would have expected that something this big would have happened. And therefore, while looking at why it happened, what's happening behind it, it's also important for us to focus on how are we going to rise above and make sure that we fix what has gone wrong. Of course, as a department, our major service is the care and support services that we need to give to the vulnerable groups. And I've already indicated the areas where we are supporting from a point of view, what exactly are we going to support our people with. I've spoken to the issue of the SRD, which of course has now been extended. I've spoken a lot about the issues of food and the distribution of food parcels and all. Now is also the time for us to be aware of the fact that when it comes to the issues of food parcels, SASSA and ourselves were in a very long discussion. We're still in the discussion about how do we balance this. Because remember, at the beginning of COVID-19, there were lots of complaints about the food parcels not going to the right people, food parcels being used and abused by other people. We were quite far in our conversation about what we need to do to have a balance between people making the choices that they need to make, and that is in fact giving them vouchers, enabling them. But of course, we're very conscious of the fact that there's something that we need to contribute to. That is towards the economic development in our country. That is ensuring that also the money rotates within the township. This is something that we will continue to do as a Department of Social Development, because the improvement of our people's lives from an economic point of view is still very important, and therefore we will do everything we can to be seen to be, yes, we're getting the money from the Department of Finance and Treasury, but let's see how that money is also used to improve people in our communities through small and medium enterprises and informal businesses, which squarely falls under the Department of Small Business Development. With regard to the basic income grant, I think the 350 really became a stepping stone for us. Yeah. Because for me, yes, I am in government, but the line of work that I was doing before was not necessarily at social development, but I had an interest, obviously, in the work of social development, because everybody should have an interest on the work of social development. And so when we came to the point of saying we have 350 that's going to be paid, what next? It was the very department, as I said earlier on, when I see Brenda, I see the basic income grant. It was the department itself that pulled out the document and said to me, Minister, your own government has been having this document for a very long time, and there was a lot of work that was done by Prof. Taylor and the team. There was a support for it, but for some reason it never saw the light of day when it came to the implementation. Right now, it will see the light of day. Right now, it has to see the light of day. Right now, it's got to be done, because if we don't do it, we are going to be in a very difficult situation where we have to deal with the people who are falling in the cracks, who have nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. So they have to be covered like everybody else is covered. And I'm also very sure that with the creativity of South Africans, it's quite amazing how since we pulled this document out, not only people in government have been supporting it, not only in parliament has it been supported. We've got organizations, researchers, non-governmental organizations who have come through and said, Minister, we were part and parcel of putting this thing together, helping the Taylor committee. We went this far. We are very grateful that you've put it back on the table. Now it's about how do we implement it? How do we find the best funding and financing of it? And again, we cannot do this alone as the government. We need to be able to engage with the private sector. We need to engage with researchers. We've actually even looked at how other countries are dealing with it. It was quite interesting for me to even be requested to say, go check with the ILO, how ILO has been helpful. Go call a roundtable discussion. The ILO can be able to help you about how other countries have been doing it. So for me, it's about pulling our resources together, because the one thing that we cannot afford as a nation is the growing hunger, is the growing unemployment, is the growing desperation by people who feel, yes, we are there, yes, we can go and vote, yes, we can do this and that, but we're not seeing the economy coming through to us. We're not being assisted to be able to stand on our own 2 feet. And I think that this is one big discussion that needs to happen, and make sure that it happens in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for providing the clarity around that work. Just one aspect, Minister wanted me to quickly just clarify. POPIA came into effect on the 1st of July. So we may have had a misprint there, but apologies for that. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That brings us to the end of our media briefing. We want to thank you for participating. Those who have also sent questions online, we thank you for that as well. And indeed, we wish all our beneficiaries all the best as they apply for their grants, and ensure that they follow all due processes accordingly, particularly for the 350 grant. So we would like to bring this media briefing to a close at this point in time. Thank you very much. Siyabonga.
What's the name? Jaconia. Jaconia. Yeah. So can you send it to share with me?